a lot of our panelists today, I know neither of them also intended to really go into the cinema exhibition industry. It's not where they initially started. So I thought it would be just super interesting to kind of have a conversation about their journeys, the steps they've taken. You're going to get some great advice if you're starting your professional journey, or maybe if you are further along and looking to maybe get into film or film exhibitions. It's going to be very helpful. So yeah, if you have any questions, again, please do pop them in the Q&A panel, because we know that this is a side of the industry that a lot of people who love film are really not that familiar with, aside from obviously going to the movies, which hopefully we all do, like, a lot. I went last night. It was awesome. So we have three panelists that were scheduled for today. One of them, unfortunately, had a last minute issue and could not make it. We may see her later on, but between our two panelists here, I think we represent people who worked in like 5 or 6 countries. It is such a privilege for me to share the stage here with Mariam El Bacha, who is now the Territory General Manager of Vue International, their Denmark operations. I think Vue is like the 3rd largest cinema exhibition chain in Europe.
I think so.
I think so. That sounds right. And you've worked pretty much everywhere. You've headed up cinema chains in like Pakistan, Vietnam. You've worked in Australia, Argentina, Malaysia.
Yes,
you've been everywhere.
Hello, everyone.
And then our other panelists here, we have Heather Morgan. She is the Chief Content Officer at Alamo Drafthouse, which hopefully any young, cool film people who are maybe listening to this definitely know about Alamo Drafthouse. But prior to that, Heather was at AMC, which is the largest cinema exhibition chain in North America and in the world as well. So perhaps later we will be seeing Funmi Anuma, who is the country manager of Silverbird Cinemas in Ghana. It's a really interesting chain operating out of Nigeria, which is a emerging market for cinema that is really just going through some really interesting transformation. So hopefully we'll hear from her. But if not, Heather and Miriam, it's great to see you guys again.
Thank you.
Great to be here. Hi.
So let's start, Mariam. Let's start with you. I kind of gave the brief background of your travels, but how did you get into the cinema business? Can you kind of walk us through the start of your story?
Back in the day when I was young and beautiful, that's usually the way that I start. I was working with my family. We had a business, and here in Argentina, I'm in Argentina right now, and like any business owner in Argentina, the chances of you going bankrupt are high, because we have a very volatile type of country with a difficult economy. And so we did, and that meant that what I did at the beginning of my university years, which was helping my family in the supermarket, that we had a big supermarket that we owned, all this knowledge that I acquired while I was studying, I said, okay, nice, I did this. Now I am ready to go and do something else, because I don't want to work with my family. I love my family. They are the best, but I want to...
No one wants to spend too much time. I get it. Yeah.
I literally opened the newspaper. Back in the day, you didn't have any LinkedIn or anything like that. So I opened the newspaper and I applied for 4 jobs. The cinema job was the first one that asked me for an interview. It was the first one that asked me for a second interview, was the first one to offer me the job. And by the time I got other offers, I was like, no, I'm already training in a cinema chain called Village Cinemas, who at that time was is still till this day. Village Cinemas is is a part of Village Roadshow. So it was they were doing this massive worldwide expansion, and they came to Argentina of all these places, and they started building cinemas. And because when I was reading, I was reading the application, I was like, well, I've done rosters. I know how to roster.
Yeah.
I've never I know how to manage cash because we had to do the cash up and everything at the end. It was a very family driven business. So I did that. I did the ordering of the stock. I did the stock. So I had kind of like I did. Yeah, I can do this.
Did you like going to the movies, or was that?
I was not aware when I was looking at the whole ad. The ad was not a specific. It didn't say it was looking for an assistant manager. It didn't say actually what it was for cinema. Then I realized that this was for a cinema, and I had been going to the cinema on my own since I was pretty much 14. I actually like to go to the cinema on my own, and then I was like, no, I can't. By the time I got other offers, I was like, no, I'm already training. I have to respect. I'm very loyal. I had to respect people. They are training me. They're spending money on me. I'm going to do this. And then I never left. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
That's how a lot of people just find themselves in this industry, and then it's like, I'm staying here for life. I know, Heather, you also kind of have that business background and knowledge that kind of led you into the cinema space, that you were able to apply those things. So I know you studied psychology of business. What was it? What was your background?
Yeah, my PhD is actually in industrial organizational psychology, which is essentially applying psychological principles to business. So you're right on. That was how I segued into this industry in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So you started off how did you start off with AMC? And
yeah, I guess, no, not exactly. So that was my first cinema company. But I grew up in a tiny town in Kansas, like population 100 people. And so I rented, my first job was working the customer service counter at Holton Country Mart customer service and video. And you rented videos there. And that was it was a very important role in a small town because there's nothing else to do other than renting videos. So you hold a lot of power in that position, but I wielded it very responsibly. So I rented videos as my first industry job, but just barely. I ended up getting my PhD in IO psychology, and I went to work doing organizational consulting for a company called Service Management Group. AMC was one of their clients. Therefore, AMC became one of my clients, along with a number of other companies. After about a year of consulting for AMC on basically their operational execution. So we did guest surveys, and you could tailor those surveys for whatever the company had going on. If they rolled out a new LTO menu or changed prices or changed cleaning procedures or staffing in the venues or whatever it was, you could survey and through the guest feedback, tell different avenues within the company where they were doing well and where they seemed to have opportunity based on guest feedback. So after doing that for a year, I went to go work for AMC exclusively as their director of guest experience, then ended up transitioning over onto the film side of the business, which led to Harkins on the film side of the business, which led to Alamo Drafthouse on the film side of the business. So it's funny how you start on a path, not having any idea really where it's going to lead, but one opportunity leads to another, which leads to another.
Yeah, you just have to be open to those opportunities. I mean, for people, hopefully there's some people watching this either live or recorded, maybe you have that talent or that interest for business. And I think it's really interesting to let people know that there is a place for that. If you love film within the cinema industry, there's a whole segment of the cinema industry that involves business and marketing and planning out these releases. So it's definitely an industry that hooks you in. Heather and Mariam, I guess. What are some of the things that maybe you wish you'd known when you started off in the industry, either about the industry specifically or just about forming your professional self, let's say?
That's a big question. You want me to take a swing at it first?
How hours do we have?
Okay, right. Okay. Things that I wish I knew earlier on in my career, I would say, as far as it relates to this business or any business, probably, I would say who you know is very important. The relationships are very important. And I say that as someone who came into this industry not knowing anyone. I've never lived in LA. I don't have family in LA. I never had any connections to the cinema industry whatsoever. And so I came in, completely blank, not knowing anyone. And who you know in this business is incredibly helpful in terms of opportunities and career growth. Everything from having someone who is willing to introduce you to people at other companies or introduce you to other people in the industry who do the same thing that you do, so you can share learnings and have them essentially, serve as a mentor to you. If you apply for a job at a company and you're just putting your resume into their website, or you're applying on LinkedIn, chances are it falls to an area where no one ever sees it. It's very different if you call someone that you know and say, hey, I've just put my resume in for this position at this company. If you could amplify it or put in a good word for me, I'd appreciate that. And I specifically have called in those kinds of favors, and I've done those favors for other people as well. And it greatly enhances the chances that you get seen and that people know who you are. So that's one. I'll think of more as Mariam shares some of hers, but that's definitely probably the most important thing, was how important relationships are. And so to spend that time networking and building a community of people.
Definitely. I mean, we definitely think of the cinema industry in terms of production, LA, it's who you know. I think it can kind of be a daunting prospect sometimes, but like you say, I mean, if someone calls or emails like, hey, can I grab coffee with you? Hey, can you help me out with something? I have literally never been told no. Like people in this industry love this industry and are super interested in cultivating that interest in others. I mean, Mariam, you're bopping around from country to country. I mean, every place
I know
differently.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, what do you? You must have started off, I mean, willing to, like Heather said, take opportunities where they go. You must have been willing to, like, I'll go anywhere.
It was very clear for me that it was very important for me to do two things in my life back in the day. One was to work independently. So I wanted to see myself working in a company that had nothing to do with my family. And then the other one was that I wanted to work overseas. When I got the job at Village Cinemas here in Argentina, I automatically knew that I was going to work for a while. And then I knew that I was going to either study abroad because I wanted to do a master's degree or something, but it needed to be abroad. For me, the whole world needed to be where I live, not just one place or one city in one place in the world. So I needed that. And I was extremely blessed because I was able to work in a company that was international, that was having those connections worldwide. And when I mentioned that to my bosses, that were people from different parts of the world, I got a lot of support. So they basically said to me, Mariam, if you find that you want to go somewhere and in that location, in that country, there's a Village Cinemas, we will be more than happy to help you out. And that literally they thought that I was going to say I want to go to Australia because that's where the company is from. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to another end of the world. I was in Argentina. This is in the southern side of the world. I don't want to go to another side of the world. I wanted to go to a more
across the equator. Yeah,
I wanted to go north. And I thought, okay, yes, I want to go to London. So I started working. They made the connections. They actually made the connections for me to get an interview directly with the people from, at that time, Warner Brothers Village Cinemas that ended up becoming Vue. And I got a job there. I was very, very lucky, and I had to prove myself. And one of the things that it was extremely important was I was managing a cinema here already, and it was a big cinema. It was a huge cinema. I was in charge of the cinema and the entire complex. So there was 2 restaurants, there was bowling alley, there was a lot of things. I went to the UK with a contract for a floor supervisor. And then later, 3 months later, I was already given an appointment of a cinema manager role. So I was not afraid to go backwards in my position, to go to another path. And that is important also, because if I was demanding, I wanted to have that same level.
Your goal of, I want to climb the ladder at this rate.
Exactly. I was very quick in saying, no, I'm happy to go sideways. I ain't having to go backwards. But because I know I had a lot of trust in myself. I say, I know I can do this. And I know once they get to know me, they will understand where I come from. And that's what they did, and literally did. And it was very important because my language skills at that time were, it wasn't that they were limited. I had a lot of education, English language education, but boy, I had a 10-second delay translation. I call it the 10-second delay translation. So something came in English and I had to translate it in my brain, and then I understood. So I had always that 10-second delay and it took me those 3 months to get out and do and start thinking in English myself.
Then you end up in Vietnam and you're like, I don't know Vietnamese.
No, but those are the relationships after that, the Australians called me and said, it's time for you to come to Australia. And then, okay, I said, okay, fine, I go to Australia. And I went to Australia, I went to Melbourne, I ran the gold class because I had my accent, that's also something important. You have to take value of things that they might not look, that they put you in a different in a negative way, but my accent in Australia sounded exotic, and that was fantastic because for running gold class you needed some kind of level, it gave a little bit of prestige, my accent.
You were
running gold class.
It works here too. She sounds exotic to us.
It's great.
It's still working.
Take advantage of what you have.
Take advantage. It might be not a negative factor, but you might think that this puts you down, but in reality, it's actually something that I used a lot when I have to deal with complaints, when I have to deal with, because it's important that you put yourself in a position where customers are like wondering, where is this person coming from? I don't understand. So I have used my accent. Something that I always thought that it was going to be putting me down, but no, in reality, I've used it to my benefit. So that is important also to take into consideration. Some things that we think that are not really good value, they actually had a lot of value on the other side, whether it's the other side of the world or in front of you on the customer side.
Failure, just there. And I feel like that's why I was so fascinated to talk to you two about this, because I feel like the soft skills of working in any industry, particularly in this industry, where if you're on the distribution side, exhibition side, but like it is a networking, relationship building industry, and that can be pretty daunting sometimes. It's not something that really gets taught. And you think of networking as, oh, I have to, meet the right people and schmooze and do this and do that. But I love what you said about how you can't be afraid to go backwards. Like the best networking that you can do, in my opinion, is horizontal networking. Like the people who you come up with. You try to network with like a CEO somewhere, they're not going to remember who you are. But that person who is at the same level as you, maybe at a different company, you're both going places. Like that's the sort of networking that I think is particularly valuable. I mean, what have been, so I mean, Heather, you come from the psychology of business. I mean, that is pretty much, you're an expert at that sort of thing, of how to apply kind of social thinking to business. Were there a lot of people, who you came up with maybe at AMC or at Harkins who you are still have relationships with now, who have helped you, able to help each other?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I think about this industry that is so special. It's once you get to know people and you've worked with them for a number of years, it becomes a very tight-knit community. So there are people who, yes, that I came up with, or that were behind me or ahead of me, and I keep in touch with all of them, because it's not always about, doing each other favors, although that does come into play, but a lot of it has to do with just being able to learn from what other people have to tell you and to share your knowledge with them. And you can discuss aspects of business, you can discuss, professional development opportunities, you can discuss anything. And it's all worthwhile time spent. So I think the networking aspect of our business is probably one of the most important things that, any of us can do. And usually I find that the amount of time you spend investing in other people, even if there's no benefit in it to you. I mean, I'm sure everyone on this call could say the same, but I've spent many hours helping people where there was nothing inherently in it to gain for me. You do it because it's the right thing. It feels like the right thing to do. And it's how you also invest in the overall health and growth of our industry. You know, we want the strongest possible people at every level on every side of our business. And so when you spend your time working toward that end, I think karma just has a way of paying you back in a very positive fashion.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely have also found that to be the case. And I mean, these networking skills, and there's something that you can learn. I think a lot of people, maybe from younger generations, like I can't imagine people who went to college like on a screen and you don't have that sort of in-person interaction. For people just entering the industry, what are some tips that you would give on maybe getting over fears, anxieties about breaking your way into it can be a pretty insular space. Like that it can be pretty intimidating if you're new.
I think one of the things that I really you cannot underestimate. Never underestimate while you're studying. Never underestimate the power of working in a cinema, in your local cinema. Never underestimate that, because companies like people that we work for, companies that we work for, we like having people that understand the business from the ground. So I particularly appreciate when somebody has worked in the cinemas, and we have this tendency internally in the cinema. We also have this tendency of, developing career planning for people that are working in the cinemas that start turning tickets or scanning tickets. Now it's scanning tickets, but they start in that position, and then they kind of start moving around, becoming supervisors, then becoming cinema managers, and then moving ahead. Don't be afraid of doing that. If you're interested in the industry, it's so much fun also, because you get to see movies for free. Majority of the cinemas, they do the same. They offer the same kind of perks. You get to see movies for free. You get to see, you get to know a little bit more about the in and outs of the movie business. And it's a great way to understand how things work internally, kind of have a look at the backstage of it. And then you have all these different avenues depending on what you're studying. If you're studying for architecture, maybe there's a position somewhere in the headquarters of your cinema company that they want to design cinemas. Maybe if you're studying finance, there's always positions in finance and cinema.
Like
if you study something, if you're looking for a career in marketing or digital marketing, there's plenty of movies there.
It's just going through a big transformation right now.
There's always an opportunity. If you love movies, then you have the chance eventually to work in the programming department and understanding how things get on the side of making deals and making pushing for analyzing data and pushing for movies that are probably going to work in this cinema but are not going to work in that cinema. It's fantastic. It's fascinating. As a business, it's a fascinating business to be in, because it's so, you have a little bit of a taste for everything, and that's what I love about it the most.
Yeah, like you have so many movie theaters now, like going into investing in like solar energy and sustainable resources. And like if you're somebody I love movies and I also have that sort of scientific brain and I'm into that, there's room for everyone in this industry.
Yeah, I would say in terms of your question about how do you push past that fear and that anxiety to get connected into this somewhat insular space that we have, my advice to people would be the same as it is regardless of what it is that they're trying to do that they feel uncomfortable with. And that's, in order for growth, you have to get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. If you only keep yourself in situations that feel safe and comfortable and easy to you, you're not going to probably reach where you want to reach or accomplish what you want to accomplish, because you're not putting yourself out there enough or taking enough risks. If you're scared to send someone a random email that you don't know to see if they would connect with you for coffee because you're afraid you'll be rejected and they'll say no, likely they won't say no. But if they do, for every 10 emails that you send, you just need one yes. And so just putting yourself out there more and more into uncomfortable situations early on will build up your muscle in that regard, where over time you feel less uncomfortable with trying those types of things. I think it's critically important to make yourself uncomfortable on a very regular basis.
Because like some people will say yes, some people will say no. A lot of people just won't even answer your email sometimes, frankly, but nobody's reading it and being like, oh my God, this person, like, why are they asking me? I'm like, they misplaced a comment. Like no one's thinking that about you.
No one's thinking about that. And by the way, though, if they don't respond, it's no reflection on you or who you are or what your level is. I still send inquiries that I get no response to. I'm like, okay, they're not here for me. That's fine. And then you move on and you keep doing it. So it's not it doesn't say anything about you. It has to do with them, and you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting time in this industry in particular, just because historically it's very insular, it's very community oriented. Historically, that's been a lot of white dudes, just speaking plainly, and it's
they know the white guys, they know.
Yeah, like
it's not a secret.
And now there's so much more. I think there's a growing like awareness that a diversity of opinions is needed, a diversity of perspectives is needed. I mean, Mariam, how do you work with, like, you're a woman going into and leading a chain in Pakistan, for instance? I mean, you're dealing with different cultural norms. I mean, has that was it awkward at first, or in moving to any of these new countries?
No, I think as just touching base on what Heather said before, it's like I became really good at getting out of my comfort zone, and because I was very curious. So curiosity was the thing that drove me to understand and getting out of my comfort zone to see and what is going on out there. And the preparation, I think the preparation for having lived in I lived in the UK, I work there, I work in Australia, I work in Vietnam and in Malaysia. That kind of always pushed me more and more and more. And by the time I got the opportunity to work in Pakistan, it was also, I took it as a great opportunity. Though the funny part of it is that I thought it was going to be extremely difficult to deal with misogyny, and it was going to be all these things that you always think about, and whenever you say the word Pakistan, and it wasn't. It was difficult to work there for the instability and for the ever changing environment. That was more difficult than actually dealing with men. Because, to be perfectly honest, I have been dealing with men that are a little bit, macho men everywhere I work. So it wasn't nothing new in that sense. So I didn't have to adapt to that. It kind of has an added value. I'm Muslim, so I understand how to navigate a little bit of that mentality, or certain type of mentality, and I put people completely. I know I kind of like make people completely confused whenever because they don't understand the whole concept. So what do you mean, an Argentinian woman that is Muslim also? It's like, so people automatically I shake their base, which is also very good. It's something that I use a lot. So it's never really a problem. But I have dealt with men. I have been in Vietnam. I have been in meetings where landlords were not even looking at me, and I was the one making the decisions. And they were talking to the people next to me, answering every time I would ask a question. They were talking to people next to me because they were men. And then slowly, by the end of the meeting, they started looking at me because I was the one answering all the questions. So it's like, okay, you might as well look at this lady. So you get used to it. Unfortunately, in a way, you get used to it. What I also, for me, was very important is never to have it as never to put that as a point of, oh, people don't listen to me. Say, no. because that's getting yourself in a victim mode, and I don't want to get into. I want to solve situations. I want to get on with things. I don't want to stay in victim mode. So that was, for me, was always very important, to get on with things and do and try. Always find a way. Always try to find a way.
Yeah, it's not. There's a tendency, like, you don't need to internalize everything, I guess, is how I'm hearing it. You know, it's not, when someone does behave that way, it's not anything, it doesn't speak to any personal attack on you. It's just like, they are how they are, and you are how you are, and you're gonna, you know, reach that equilibrium point or not, but you're gonna do that by working together.
Yep.
Yeah. And Mariam, I know you've been involved in Women in Exhibition as a group, as a networking group for women in the cinema industry, and you launched the mentorship program there.
Yes.
Mentorship is such a huge part of this industry. What would what are some of those opportunities that people can pursue? I mean, how would you recommend if someone wants to find a mentor?
Well, I have been extremely blessed all my life. So the person that called me to take the job in Vietnam, who is the person I adore. I adore my dear mentor, Kurt Reader. I adore him, right? So he called me one day. He said, "Mariam, I need to go to Vietnam." I said, "Are you crazy? You crazy?" I was like, "What do you want me to do in Vietnam? You crazy?" I said, "Just shut up. Shut up." He said, "Shut up and send me your CV." I said, "Okay, boss, I'll send you my CV." And it ended up being the eye opener of my life, right? So I always make the note of appreciating and being grateful for him being in my life. And I met him in Argentina. He was the CEO of the cinema chain in Argentina, and we did a lot of really fun marketing, local area marketing stuff with the cinema that was number 40 in the country, and then we ended up putting into number 4. So that was a very important work of local area marketing, little by little. And we became very good friends, and, you know, part of the family. My family knows him. I know his family. It's a really beautiful relationship. He's my mentor. He's been my mentor throughout. And I have been very blessed, because I've been very blessed of having these people that have always been helpful, always been looking to guide, or if I need a word of advice, they're always there. So I would recommend people to find someone, and it doesn't not need to be necessarily from the industry, but it could be someone that you go to. It could be as simple as having your mom can be the mentor of your life, because usually they are. It needs to be someone that you're able to connect and be honest. You know, be honest with yourself, what is going on in your life. Be honest in what you want to pursue. So he understood me completely, and because I'm appreciative of the role that this mentor had in my life, and other people also had in my life. We understood at Women in Exhibition, we understood that it was extremely important to start building that community of women, that we can support each other. That for me was the biggest, one of the most important things I've done in my last 10 years, which was being part of and putting together the mentorship program, because I did it for 3 years. Now I handed the baton to another fantastic team that is able to take over and even make it even bigger. But I did it for 3 years, and what I saw in those 3 years of having a mix of 15 couples all together, an average of 15 couples every single year, getting together and getting to know each other and doing the work of mentorship. It's extremely rewarding. I had nothing to do with it. I just put the couples together, but they did the work of getting to know each other, of meeting together, and doing the working together as mentors and mentees. And it's extremely rewarding when you see at the end of the year, you see the whole journey of what people went through. And it might have majority of the times it resulted that the mentee actually gets a promotion, or the mentee actually gets some place where they actually wanted to get. But that aside, which is important and is wonderful, but that aside, the network and the relationships that you built on that journey, oh, that was the priceless moment. That was the beautiful thing to witness in my eyes. So for me, that was the most rewarding thing that I've done. Again, in the last 10 years of my life, was one of the most rewarding things that I've done, and I'm extremely proud of it. So I suggest anybody who wants to be in the cinema industry or is in the cinema industry and is just starting, sign up next time whenever we do, and we do the calls for signing up for the mentorship program. Sign up. If you are a mentor, if you're someone that has been already there, that has been able to do some of the work, please also raise your hand and say, I'd like to be a mentor. It doesn't matter that you have, if you don't feel that you're fully qualified, but you technically are super qualified, because sometimes we doubt ourselves too much, please sign up to be a mentor, because we need women. We need to build that community of people. And I see in the people that are actually here, we have also taken men mentors, and it has worked really well. So it's not that we're just doing it for we are blocking men to come in. We have also been very lucky to have, for example, Marcus Overath from Germany. He has come and helped us out, and it was great. The connection was the right fit for the right person. So we take into consideration anybody, just to make sure that the mentee has that opportunity to grow and connect within the industry.
You have to remain open, remain curious, ask a lot of questions. I found people, especially people who have been in this industry for a while, like, it's interesting and they love to talk about it. And if you can ask a smart question, that just goes a long way. And you want to get your name out there in this industry, definitely. Heather, for someone, how would you? What are some like first baby steps, I guess, that you can take in this industry, or maybe any sort of industry, to start getting your name out there? Like, what's the appropriate level of getting your name out there, like without doing too much?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. So Mariam just talked beautifully about the Women in Exhibition Mentorship Program. There's another one through Film Road that's a mentorship program. So if you want to be connected to other people in our industry, there are formal mentorship programs that we have, but there's also being involved with other industry organizations and charities. There's the Variety Charity, there's Will Rogers. Getting involved in other organizations within the industry is an excellent way to help meet people and find connections. And then in terms of getting your name out there, so this is going to seem like very basic advice, but I would say that be as good as you possibly can at the role that you have at any given point in time, regardless of what role that is. If you want to be your company's CEO and you are starting as the general manager of a theater, then your job is to be the very best general manager of that theater that the company has ever seen. And that will lead to one opportunity, which leads to another, which leads to another. If you want to be the chief content officer and you're a film buyer, then your role is to be the very best film buyer that you possibly can. And people will notice and they will take note and they will start talking about that. And that will lead to other opportunities. So in terms of how to get your name out there, part of it is networking, part of it is relationship building, and part of it is just like delivering damn strong results at anything that you do.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, just respond. If you're new to like, you'd be surprised how few people respond to emails, and like literally just responding to emails on time and quickly is a good way for people to like remember you in a positive light. But yeah, Heather, you mentioned Will Rogers is a Motion Picture Pioneers Foundation. It's a group that's been around 85 years. Mm-hmm. 85 years. That it's it's a sense of community. It's like by the film industry, for the film industry. Variety, the children's charity, is a group that has a lot of local chapters that Cinema Exhibition like works for, and it's like raising money to get mobility devices for kids, and it's a really great cause. But there are also sign up for the email newsletters, like find out Film Row, part of Will Rogers, like you have trivia nights. You have a lot of these events and opportunities to reach out and get to know people. And so many of them now are online. Like it used to be, if you weren't like at the in-person conventions, then you were missing out. But there are so many more opportunities, and you can be anywhere. You have to deal with time zones, and you've called into meetings from like every possible time zone there could be. But the opportunities are there. Like you just have to reach out and go for them. So I think we are going to be opening the Q&A in a bit. We are nearing the end of the webinar. So if there are, I'm going to be getting some questions here, but please do put them in the Q&A box if you have anything you would like to ask about, like, even what does a chief content officer do? Like what is your role involved? I guess you start with guest experience and now you're more a content officer. Like that's an interesting path.
Yeah, the role that I have now at Alamo as Chief Content Officer is essentially the exact same role that I had at Harkins as the VP of Content and Programming. It's just with a different name. But basically, my team, I oversee all on-screen programming that happens at Alamo Drafthouse. So my team, there's a team of film buyers who do the first run film programming. There's a team that does the alt content and specialty programming. So like all of these, niche films or fun series that we do, that team puts it together. There's a scheduling component to our business, really everything from acquiring the product that we're putting on screen to the point where it actually gets on screen and the showtimes are posted on the website. All of that work is what my team does.
And that's like, that is the job I feel like everybody who's a film nerd wants. Like that's programming and that, and it does sound like a really fun job, but you didn't set out intending to do that at all.
Right.
Just kind
of the weird segue. Okay. So, I started with AMC as the director of guest experience, and that was when Jerry Lopez was the CEO, and he placed a lot of value on what he called organizational athletes, which were people that you could pluck from their area of expertise and put them in something totally unrelated, and they would learn it and they would deliver results. And so I think they wanted to expand my breadth of experience in the industry and kind of test out my fitness in this way. And so Elizabeth Frank offered me the opportunity to join her team as a film buyer and learn that side of the business. How do we program content for cinemas? How do we acquire our film? How do we negotiate film terms? How does the entire studio relations piece work when cinemas acquire content? And so it was her offer that really was the catalyst for setting me out on this path, which then led to Chief Content Officer for Alamo Drafthouse.
And we have a question here for you, Heather. How do you see the impact of your work as an IO psychologist in the cinema industry?
So that's really difficult to answer. It's a great question. I don't function right now. I haven't functioned for a long time as a traditional IO psychologist. You would normally expect an IO psychologist to go into organizational consulting, which I did initially, or more like human resources type functions. My IO psychology background right now, I really channel more in the area of leadership development. So my own leadership, developing the leaders around me, developing leadership within my team. And it also has to do a lot with organizational climate and culture, which plays out on individual teams and the organization as a whole. So really, it's taking those principles of IO psychology in the way of organizational climate and culture, leadership development, communication, stress management, work-life balance. And those are the aspects of IO that I deploy in my role today. I don't do anything, you can take an IO psychology degree and you can channel it in terms of things like developing performance appraisal processes or helping with training seminars. And I don't really do that work. I mainly use it as a leadership generalist, which I have found to be critically important when you want to advance your career. If you want to, again, lead a project or lead a team or lead a company, if you don't know how to lead people, then you're probably not going to be put in that role. Or if you are put in that role, you're going to struggle in it greatly, and that's going to be noticed.
You can know everything about the subject matter and think that you're like the expert of the world and expert of the company, but you do need to have those leadership skills and ability to manage people, because people are complicated and people have egos, and it can be interesting. It can be tough.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll say on that is you don't have to be in a formal structural position of leadership in your company in order to be a leader. You can be a leader as an individual contributor in your organization. And again, that will get noticed and serve you well and help you advance to formal leadership roles if that's what you aspire to. And even if it isn't, it will still help you along your career path.
Well, like Mariam, second question here about the joys and the challenges of running a cinema and what makes a great cinema manager. I feel like that ties right in because it's a leadership position, it's a leadership role, even if you're not to that level yet. And so many people started off like popping popcorn in this industry, and now they're CEOs somewhere.
I loved when I was a cinema manager. I loved the pace of it. I will always run a cinema that was 8 screens, 10 screens, 16 screens. So it was like, every 10 minutes there's always a show, so you always need to go get on with it. So for me, it was the fast pace of it, and the fact that there can be a problem here, or it can be an issue here, it can be a situation that you have to be attentive and pay attention to it. I love that. I also loved that every week we had the chance to market things in a different way and try things in a different way, because every movie needs to be targeted into a different way. And that gives you so much freshness into the business, because you can do something different. You can venture into doing things in a different way. And again, the whole concept of the show must go on. At the end of the day, okay, you try, it didn't work, you go on. The show goes on. You can do something different. Yeah. Because the beautiful thing about it is that you have another show coming in 2 hours, so you can do something different. You can try something different in the next 2 hours. It's going to be, that's the beautiful thing about it. The challenge, if anything, is adapting to the fact that you will work weekends.
Yeah, you don't get weekends and holidays off.
You will go against traffic in that sense. So whenever people are resting, you are busy. And that's the reality of our business. And that's something that you kind of get used to it. I got used to it, to have my Tuesday day off at a certain point in my life. It was so much fun. I miss it now, because now I do work some, kind of Monday to Friday. I usually go into the cinema to check them out. But that's another story. That's just me. But I do work on Monday to Fridays, and that's something that I miss. So it's like whenever, nobody goes into a shopping mall on a Tuesday morning, I would be there just organizing my life. But that's the reality of it. That's
Saturday shift.
And if you're not into seeing a lot of people at any given time, then you need to think of something different to do, because you will be constantly facing people. And that's what actually makes it great to be a cinema manager. You will be dealing with your staff, understanding the staff that is younger than you, that is probably in another generation, and you have to understand how they work, what ticks, what works. And that is fantastic, because it gives you constant gymnastics of dealing with people that are in different generational backgrounds. So it's great. And then you have to deal with customers, and that's something that if you're not into it, maybe this is not for you, and it's okay. It's okay.
It's a steady stream of people. It's a steady stream of it's a different product you're selling every 7 days. So it's not boring. It's never boring.
It's never ending. It's never ending. It's never boring. I have when I started working in Vietnam, I realized the importance of the cinema as a hub of entertainment for the entire family. I was used to work in cinemas in locations where you can go in the cinema on your own. But in Asia, the importance was you never go to. People would look at me funny when I would buy one ticket or would get one ticket into the cinema, because you said, nobody else with you? I said, no, it's just me. And but the beautiful thing about it is that in Asia, people go in a community. You have friends, at least 3, 4. It was the highest amount of tickets that I got in every single transaction whenever I was living in Vietnam. And it's fantastic to see that. Of course, that meant that it would never was a silent cinema. You have to understand there was always a little bit of a murmur, and it's okay. You have to deal with that. But it was a different experience, and it was wonderful to see how people, there's always magic in how people react. It's always magic about how people use the cinema as a hub of entertainment for their little town or their little point of or city. And like Heather was saying at the beginning, when she was working in her own place in her own town in this video store, that attracted people because they were looking for entertainment. And the fact that you're providing entertainment to people, you're that attraction center of providing entertainment to people. This is not a supermarket. You're not working in a supermarket. People do this every week. They have to go every week to transact. You're not doing that. You are actually providing an experience of entertainment.
People providing a community. I mean, it's a real, there's such a big...
You create a community. People are going to talk about it. People are going to remember it. I remember when I went to the cinema, the first times I went to the cinema with my dad or with my mom, I remember that. People are going to, the fact that you're able to be that person that provides that experience, I love it. I love it. It gives me goosebumps because it might be trivial that you say, we're not actually, this is not rocket science. This is not, you're not saving lives, but it makes a difference, and making a difference in such a joyful way. It's beautiful.
It's you're introducing people to their next favorite film. You're helping people, like a first date, or like taking your kid to the movies for the first time. Like, these are hugely important moments that you can help facilitate. And there's such a push now in the industry for cinemas to really lean in to being a community hub rather than just a place that you go to watch a movie. Like, obviously at Alamo, you have lots of different like parties and events. There's trivia. I mean, so many more theaters now have like restaurants and bars attached that you can go to afterwards. If you are someone who kind of wants to get that community energy and build that community and help people have fun, like there is a role for you in this industry. There's a lot more to it than I think most people think or are taught when they are studying film. And another question here: what are the benefits and disadvantages of traveling for the film industry? How much travel is there involved for you? I mean, Heather, are you going around to different sites?
Well, so let me just say that Mariam's background makes me feel very basic, because my travel is like Kansas to Arizona to Texas. So we are not in the same, we're not in the same league as this goes. But the benefits for traveling to the cinema industry is, there are a number of them. It's important to have face time with, again, I'm not in operations. I oversee content, but I still travel to be seen in our venues and to get to know the people that work in our venues and how they feel about the product they're getting and what they're seeing, because that's an important touch point. I travel to LA a lot to see my studio partners and to have conversations, because we can exchange emails all day long. We can have phone calls, we can have video calls, but when you sit down with someone in their office or over coffee, it's just different. It's a different level of connection that I think is important. And then also, like to Mariam's point, being willing to move for different roles that you want. So it's a little bit different now post-COVID, because there are more roles that are remote, but it wasn't always that way. And it's starting to boomerang a little bit back. And so my willingness to move from Kansas to Arizona facilitated the Harkins move. My willingness to move from Arizona to Texas facilitated the Alamo Drafthouse move. And so I think in general, the more flexible you are and willing to move to different states or different towns or different countries for different roles that you might be offered, it will just allow you faster career growth. But Mariam, I don't know, what else do you have to add to that?
No.
This doesn't like you. disadvantages to traveling, or wouldn't do it so much.
The disadvantage is the work-life balance component. So some people are single parents, some people have a spouse that works long hours as well. And so when you travel, you do have to figure out how to weave that in and balance the other aspects of your life that require your attention and care. And I've always experienced a little bit of mom guilt when I travel. That will always be something that happens, and I just I learned how to manage it and deal with it. It gets easier as the kids get older, but I would say that's maybe the downside.
Yeah. If you're interested in getting into cinema exhibition and you're open to moving to Texas, there are so many cinema exhibition companies in Texas.
That's right. We have Cinemark, we have Evo, we have Alamo. Like, Texas is now the next entertainment hub. You heard it here first.
So there's so much land.
The next Hollywood. My God.
You don't need to be in LA, Texas, or Kansas City. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been great talking to you again and answering these questions. And anyone listening, please do look Heather and Mariam up on LinkedIn, or I know definitely open to answering any questions, or just connect with everybody. I think is one of the big messages here for the film industry. It is not difficult to do, and the dividends of putting in the time, people recognize it. It will come back and help you in the end. So thank you so much for everyone who's here live listening, and to anyone listening to the recorded session as well. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.